People watching this home, they don't know what's going on. They're going about their lives. All they know is that there's a big bill, there's some tax stuff in it, there's some spending stuff in it, some border stuff, and that's about all they know. So why am I here? Because the House passed that bill, imperfect, but I will call passable by definition. We sent it to the Senate. The Senate is making the bill worse as we speak. The Senate is making decisions, both policy decisions and what's called going through a process over there to see if it's language that's supposed to be in a budget-related reconciliation package. We call it a bird process. They're pulling pieces out of it. The bill is getting worse. Now let me see if I can put it in basic terms. This chart's not going to mean much to most people back home. You don't even need to look at all the bars. It gets kind of complex. But I just want it to be real simple. This orange line on this chart, and people in the gallery, you can't see it, but imagine an orange line on a XY graph. That orange line says that under the House bill, on a dynamic basis, what does that mean? That accounting for economic growth, accounting for the tax policies, accounting for what we believe will happen, we would have about additional $72 billion of deficit spending over 10 years. Sadly, $72 billion is kind of a rounding error when you're talking about 10 years. In other words, it's close to break even. We would cut taxes, we would reduce spending, we would get economic growth, and we believe we would add nothing more to the deficit. Now, here's the problem. Adding nothing more to the deficit means we still have deficits. We still have $1.8 trillion to $2 trillion a year in deficits. So I voted for a bill that will perpetuate $1.8 trillion deficits. And I hated doing it. But I did it because in this process, in this political environment, to get the reforms that we were getting to Medicaid, to get the reforms that we were getting to terminate 60% of the Green New Scam subsidies undermining our grid, to get the tax cut extensions for hardworking Americans. To me, it was worth doing that when I thought credibly, believably, we would not be adding to the deficit and get those important reforms. But here we are. The Senate, in its infinite wisdom over in the House of Lords, they are embarking on focusing on what we would have anticipated they would focus on, which is just the tax cut side for the most part. They're backing away from the spending cuts, the spending restraint. They're backing away from the reforms that we think makes the math work. And therein lies the problem. You want to know why we're $37 trillion in debt as a nation? It's because too often my Republican colleagues have never met a tax cut they didn't want to advance, while then campaigning on balancing the budget and cutting spending that they never want to vote for. We can't do that. We have to actually lead. In a Republican form of government, there are 435 of us, representing 30-something million Americans. I represent about 750,000 people. In a Republican form of government, I'm supposed to take the hard votes. I'm supposed to go back to my constituents and say, well, we're doing this and this and this. We think it's good. I know you wanted this, but we can't have that because we're $37 trillion in debt. I go back to this chart. There's a big yellow bar over here with flames on top. It shows almost $1 trillion of additional deficit that the Senate bill would add if the policies they are currently debating in the Senate are adhered to, meaning they got rid of a lot of our savings and they made certain tax cuts more permanent. They extended them. I support making those tax cuts permanent and extending them, but not without the spending reductions necessary to get us back to deficit neutrality or deficit savings.